And as a chaplain, you've been through heavy times.
Yeah.
We go to Adelaide 2015.
Oh mate, yeah, that was massive. That was even bigger. I mean, we thought the Dean Bailey situation was tough enough, and it was, but this was even tougher because the Dean Bailey situation there was great sadness in the club, but there wasn't so much that level of shock because people could sort of see it coming.
Correct.
He'd been away from the club for a period of time. He wasn't coming back. He'd been in hospital, so it was almost the inevitable happened. It was really sad. Whereas when the next phone call came, and it was our then current coach Phil Walsh, and we find out that at the time he'd been allegedly murdered in his own home. That was just crazy because that was shock. That wasn't like, that was grief and shock, and everyone was overwhelmed because here we were at the Adelaide Oval. I was at training that day on the Thursday afternoon or morning, training at the Adelaide Oval, getting ready for our next game, which will be on Sunday against Geelong at the Adelaide Oval. The players wake up the next morning to find out he's been murdered overnight. Now I got a phone call about 4 a.m, I think it was, from our player welfare manager to say, Mark, we're going to need you. Can you get down to the club immediately? She told me what had happened. And so I got down there before sunlight, basically. And the players all got called to tell, okay, you got to get down to the club. We've got to let you know something. So, I was there the morning the players were just all turning up. And my role was to support them in the news that they were about to hear, but also speak to them, as I did 18 months earlier with Dean Bailey's situation. I got to speak to the whole playing group and coaches about grief and how they might, how they'd be able to cope, reminding them how well they did 18 months earlier through the loss of. I mean, a lot of this is probably going over their head because everyone was just in shock. And trying to just work out what we're going to do next. And heavy involvement. Yeah.
When you got that phone call in the early morning, did you always know something bad?
Generally, you don't get. It's not too often the phone goes at 4 o'clock in the morning from someone that you know, and it's not going to be bad news.
Yeah. So when you got that phone call, what was going through your head?
It was interesting. See, as a pastor, shocked, but I went into I think pastoral mode pretty much initially. Okay, what do I need to do to help the club, to support the club? I'm a chaplain. I've got to step forward here. So in situations like this, chaplains in a club, usually you're in very much the background. Things are confidential. There's no fanfare around your role. You're just a bit player in the club. That's fine. But in times like this, you step forward, you become a leader in the club just for a small period of time. And so I had to step forward and be a leader, because this is an area where I feel a little more comfortable in, whereas most people don't feel at all comfortable in. Yeah. So I've got to be their strength.
Right man for the job.
Yeah, that's right. So that's how I was stepped into that day.
Yeah. And then you delivered a speech in front of, it the entire club? Or
the entire playing list and coaches,
Yeah.
And I think was that one, there was one other one, maybe it was Dean Bailey, where I had to speak to the whole staff as well. Yeah.
So we go to the speech with Phil Walsh.
Yeah.
What did you deliver? How did
I just talked about how I know this is absolute shock and sadness, and just acknowledged the grief that is in the room, and he also acknowledged that you're all feeling different levels of grief. Because Phil had only been in the club for 9 months, so some were feeling it really heavily because they'd already bonded greatly with him. He was a great man. He's just a beautiful person and a great coach, and people really got behind him, and he believed in people, and so he'd already formed a great relationship. So there's a lot of shock for a lot of players, and for others, that perhaps didn't have quite the relationship with him, in shock, sad, but maybe a level of grief a notch under some of them. So you have to acknowledge that. And also give them permission to cry and hug and just let the emotion out. And here's all the level of support that we can offer you. You've got this person that you can speak to. So you've got to offer them support. Hey, let's do this. Let's hang in there together. Reminded them about how well they did 18 months earlier, getting through the Dean Bailey situation, coming out the other side. We will come out the other side, but we're going to have to go through some tough grief initially. So it's all those sorts of things you talk to them about. Yeah.
And did you have people come up to you after the speech? And you would have had a lot of people.
Some in that situation just sort of bed down and just went into silent mode and just didn't want to talk initially. Others wanted to come and chat and just, I just can't believe it. They just need to express their emotion. Some would cry. And that, over the next couple of weeks, that grief came out in a whole variety of ways. I remember the club took me with the players over to Perth, our next game. So the very next game was cancelled. The AFL cancelled the game against Geelong out of respect for the club, because it was just too early to get on. But 7 days after that, our first game back was against Perth over at Optus. It wasn't Optus Stadium. It was back when they played at Subiaco, I think it was. Anyway, I went over with the team just to be there to support. I remember them walking off after that game. We got hammered by West Coast. But it was just a matter of getting back on the horse again and playing footy.
Yeah.
And half the players were crying as they were walking off the ground. In the rooms, there was this massive outburst of emotion, people crying and just letting it out. And my role was to be there and support them during that period of time. It was like a release valve.
Yeah.
For them.
You don't seem like a guy that gets stressed, but was that a stressful time for you?
No, it wasn't. But interestingly for me, it was when everything, the dust settled on everything, maybe 2-3 weeks later, I remember feeling really flat for a day or two, and I reckon that's what it caught up with me. But for the first couple of weeks, I was just in the zone.
Helping.
Because I also had to lead the memorial service at the Adelaide Oval, and that was huge too.
Massive.
So that was in the McGarry room there. Well over 1,000 people, invited guests. And and I've never done anything like this before, because you've got politicians and police commissioners and the who's who of the AFL world all in the front rows there. And up the back, again, news to me, this is new to me, you've got all the press. The TV press, the media, print press, the media, all up the back with clipboards taking notes of everything that was happening, taking notes of everything you're saying.
Yeah.
So I remember getting up there before it even started, looking at it, all that, thinking, I took a big deep breath. But again, I thought, no, I had that sense of God was saying, hey, mate, you got this, because this is you're here for such a time as this. That quote from Esther in the Bible. So I felt like, no, I was meant to be here. This is one of the reasons why I believe I was sent to Adelaide, to be here for these moments.
Correct.
So I felt really calm going into that service.
And you've been used to public speaking in that, for
absolutely.
sure. Were you a little bit nervous, or you were very content?
I was a little bit nervous, but I took a deep breath and then just had an overwhelming sense of, you'll be empowered for the role. You're in the right place. This is why you were sent here. So I felt quite calm with it all. And the response afterwards was overwhelmingly positive from people too.
And that's crucial. If you... Just say Adelaide didn't have a chaplain at that time.
Yeah.
How do you think would a club go about it?
Well, they'd work their way through it. That perhaps they wouldn't be able to work their way through it quite as intense or at the same intentionality that I was able to give them in some ways. I remember a couple of players coming up to me afterwards, not particularly religious or of a Christian faith, but they would come up to me and say, "Oh, Rev," they used to call me Rev, as they do here too. "Oh, Rev, I reckon you were sent here for a reason. I'm not particularly religious, but I think you were sent here for a reason." This is one of the players that had journeyed with me for a couple of years here through the grief that they'd gone through as a club. So we really bonded through that period of time. We really bonded with the players to such a degree that I did a number of their weddings, because even when I came back to Melbourne here, and they had a chaplain, for a couple of years ago, I'd get calls from some of the players that were getting married and wanting me to do their wedding because of the bonds we'd formed over that couple of years in particular, because of the trust that we developed. So going back and doing Richie Douglas's wedding and Sammy Jacobs, a big ruckman, and back here, Andy Ottens, I remember doing his wedding. There was quite a few weddings from players that I did just because of what we went through together.
Yeah. So how long was that period? Like, how long did it take for the club to kind of get through that together?
It's pretty amazing. I mean, they obviously spluttered through the rest of the season. I think we played finals and got bundled out week 1 by memory. But really, for the playing group, it was just about getting back to playing footy and enjoying life again. And I remember going to, this is a good story, I went to, a few weeks after Phil had passed away, Eddie Betts gives me a call on a Saturday morning. And I said, "Oh, Eddie, how you going?" He goes, "Oh, Rev, just wondering what you're doing tonight." I said, "I haven't got a lot of stuff going on. Well, how can I help you?" Eddie goes, "Oh, I wouldn't mind if you came and married me. Come and did my wedding."
Wow.
I said, "Eddie, I didn't know you were engaged." And he said, "No, I'm not. I'm not engaged. It's Anna's 30th birthday tonight. I want to turn it into a wedding. Can you do it for me?" And I said, "Oh, mate, well, look, I can come and help you, but I can't officially marry you tonight because of the legalities. We need a 30-day lead up with the paper signing and whatnot. But I'll tell you what, what we can do is what is called a marriage commitment ceremony. So vows and rings, but first of all, she's going to have to say yes. She wants to marry you.
Yes.
So I've got that worked out in the speech. So I rocked up that night in the city, and he got down on his knees and asked her to marry him. And she said yes. And I walked down from the back and it morphed into a wedding service.
Wow.
Where I ran it just like I would a normal wedding service. I made it clear that it wasn't legal at the time, but that it would become legal days later.
Yes.
Because we had witnesses there and everything. And she was up for it. And that was a very special time, but there was a lot of love and laughter in the room. Most of the playing group were there. And I felt like that was the moment where the club really took a turn and moved on. It was like life is saying, hey, life doesn't wait for anyone. You've got to keep enjoying life. You've got to keep enjoying these milestones. Phil wouldn't want you to be wallowing in self-pity for the rest of the year or your life. Get on with it, because he was very much a get on with it. Get the job done was his mantra. Yeah. And so I thought that was a pivotal moment in the life of the club, not just in Eddie's life. And so I'll never forget that. And what a privilege to be involved. So Eddie and I, when we see each other on the sidelines on game day, you'll often come up and give me a hug, and it's because of that period of
great.
time in our lives that we
trust.
shared together. Yeah.
And the players, like, they start to open up with you and they build that trust. So the trust
That's
must
right.
be crucial because
Yeah.
I guess looking in with players, they're tough and they don't have much to share. But I guess behind closed doors, it's different. And you've got
like any person,
like
you've
any
got
person.
frailties.
Yeah, because not a lot of people
self-doubt.
would understand, I guess, what these players are going through. But so it's crucial